All right, today we're going to dive into an idea that's, well, it's a bit of a paradox. It might just change the whole way you think about searching for happiness. And it all starts with a simple but really profound thought. Just let that sink in for a second. Walking on the mountain, why search for the mountain? It's a classic Zen koan, one of those riddles that's designed to point you toward a truth you can't quite get to with logic alone. What if the very thing you're desperately looking for is something you already have? What if it's literally the ground you're standing on right now?
We're all guilty of this, right? We treat happiness like it's some distant peak we've got to conquer. We pack our mental bags with all our expectations and our 5-year plans, totally convinced that over there, somewhere in the future, that's where we'll finally find peace. But that way of thinking, it just sets us on a journey that never ever ends.
So let's make this super personal for a minute. What's the mountain you're searching for? Is it a better job? A perfect relationship? That feeling of inner peace? Now just try this on. What if you're actually already there, but you're just too busy looking through your binoculars to notice?
Okay, so if we're supposed to stop searching, how do we actually start seeing? Well, it all begins with this idea of an attitude of openness. Basically, realizing the goal isn't some tiny bullseye way off in the distance, and there's this fantastic story about a master archer that illustrates this perfectly.
So picture this. A crowd's gathered, it's a beautiful day. You've got this highly respected Zen master stepping out onto a huge lawn. Behind a distant target, the ocean is sparkling. There's this real sense of ceremony in the air. He bows, puts on a white silk robe, takes out his bow, and everyone just holds their breath.
And this is where it gets weird. After this long meditative pause, he pulls the string all the way back. But instead of aiming at the target, he points the arrow straight up into the clear blue sky. He lets it go, and it just soars way over the target and eventually falls right into the ocean.
And the master just smiles, completely satisfied. His point? In mindfulness, the target is everywhere. It's not about one single outcome. The real target is your breath, the feeling of the bow in your hand, the sound of the arrow cutting through the air. The entire experience is the goal. We don't need to hit some specific mark to feel fulfilled.
But if that's true, if the target really is everywhere, why do we miss it all the time? Well, it's because our own minds are constantly getting in the way. They're layering all these stories and worries and judgments on top of the simple reality of what's happening right now.
And this creates a gap, On one side, you have reality, just as it is. And on the other, you have our own running commentary about that reality. The writer Pico Iyer learned this lesson in a really powerful way. So he goes to this beautiful, incredibly serene monastery, but instead of actually experiencing it, he spends his entire trip seeing it through his friend's eyes. He's worrying, oh, is he going to like it? Is it going to be too noisy? Is that monk in the gift shop going to be rude? He totally missed his own peaceful experience because he was lost in a future that hadn't even happened yet.
The great haiku master Basho just nailed this feeling. Imagine being in Kyoto, one of the most beautiful cities on earth, hearing a sound that defines the very soul of the place, and feeling a sense of longing for it, as if you weren't even there. It's totally absurd, but it's exactly what our minds do. We are on the mountain, longing for the mountain. So if we're always missing the present moment, how do we get back to it? Well, this brings us to another really core idea, understanding that life is like a river. It's always flowing, it's always changing. And the real key is to stop trying to grab onto the water. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus said this thousands of years ago. By the time you take that second step, new water is flowing. It's not the same river. And, just as important, you're not the same person. This idea of constant change is absolutely central to Zen.
In Vietnamese Zen, the term for this is vô nha, which means no self. Now, that doesn't mean you don't exist. It just means you aren't a static, fixed thing. You're a dynamic process. You are constantly changing, just like the river. The suffering happens when we try to cling to a fixed idea of who we are or what our life is supposed to be.
There's this old story that just perfectly illustrates how dangerous this clinging can be. A merchant's home burns down. He finds the charred remains of a child and, convinced it's his son, he carries the ashes everywhere in a little bag, completely lost in his grief. But his son actually survived. One day, the real, living son comes back and knocks on the door, and the father, clutching his bag of ashes, refuses to open it. He has become so attached to his story of loss that he can't accept the living, breathing truth standing right in front of him.
Okay, so we've talked about having an open mind, about letting go of our fixed ideas. But where does all of this lead? What's the point? Well, it leads outward. It leads from all this internal understanding to external action. It leads to kindness and compassion.
After a whole lifetime of incredible intellectual exploration, the writer Aldous Huxley came to this conclusion. The most important lesson is simply learning to be kind. All the philosophy, all the meditation, it all points toward this simple practice. And there is an incredible true story from the world of Aikido that shows exactly what this looks like.
So, an American Aikido student named Terry Dobson is on a train in Tokyo. This huge, drunk, violent guy gets on and just starts screaming and shoving people. Terry, he's young, he's strong, and he gets ready to be the hero, to use all his martial arts training. But just as he stands up, this tiny, elderly Japanese man in a kimono calls out cheerfully to the drunk guy, "Hey, what you been drinking?" And he starts this gentle, friendly chat about his favorite sake and his wife and the persimmons in his garden. And the drunk man's rage just melts away. He completely breaks down and collapses, sobbing, with his head in the old man's lap.
Terry just sat back down, totally ashamed. He'd been ready to fight, to dominate, to win. But the old man, with nothing but open-hearted kindness, had resolved the entire conflict without throwing a single punch. Terry understood right then that the highest form of martial arts, and maybe the highest form of living, isn't about winning fights. It's about love.
And this brings us to one last, really fundamental question. If we're not supposed to measure our lives in accomplishments, or possessions, or even in perfect moments of Zen, then how do we measure our time here?
525,600 minutes. Does that number ring a bell? It comes from the song Seasons of Love from the musical Rent, and it asks a question that gets right to the heart of everything we've been talking about today. How do you measure a year? Do we measure it in tasks we've completed or deadlines we've met? This song, and all the wisdom we've been exploring, suggests there's a different way to keep score. Maybe the truest measure of a life isn't what we achieve, but the love we give. Because love, really, is the ultimate expression of being truly present and completely open to the world.
So I'll leave you at that. For just a moment, forget about searching for that distant mountain. Look around you, right now. The target is everywhere. The river is flowing. The only real question is, how are you going to choose to measure this one precious day?